Our blue-haired MC got home after grocery shopping and began making dinner. He was peeling the potatoes when his little sister slammed the door open, causing him to jolt in shock and cut his finger. Suzuha sobbed, with a sword clutched in her hand, and apologized for losing the match. She ran to him, frustrated that she brought shame to his name as the strongest. He tried to calm her down by giving her tea, as it was dangerous, since he was holding a knife. Our MC lives together with his little sister Suzuha. If we're talking about special skills, he's just an ordinary older brother who does housework. Unlike him, his brilliant little sister Suzuha has been attending a certain academy since this spring, the Royal Academy for the Strongest Female Knights. This country, the Kingdom of Drosselmeyer, has produced many capable knights, so the school, both in name and reality, is the best royal training institute for the strongest. And Suzuha passed the entrance exam to such a prestigious school with flying colors. It's the one thing their poor, ordinary family can take pride in. He served their dinner and was relieved to see her perk up right as she began eating. He pulled back a chair for him to sit in and asked about the match she was talking about when she came home earlier. Her school has a tradition of having matches between new enrollees and upperclassmen, and she was challenged by one of the upperclassmen. It seems she lost the match. That was true, but she asked him not to be so blunt about it. Besides, she didn't just come home after suffering a loss. She had a match promised for tomorrow. Though the one fighting won't be her, but him. He exclaimed in confusion and stood up abruptly to ask why. It was her match, so why did he have to fight for her? About that, she said something when she was frustrated about losing. She told her upperclassmen that she may have lost the match, but her older brother was far, far stronger than her. And when she did, her opponent said she'll visit their house tomorrow. He questioned how it came to that, and Suzuha just shrugged. She was sure that her upperclassmen got curious about him since she told her just how strong and powerful he really was. Out of frustration, he confiscated her bowl of katsudon as punishment. Suzuha whined about her food being taken, but he stood his ground and told her to immediately take back the duel she set up on her own. The next day, Suzuha's brother was doing laundry, thinking about how Suzuha got mad after he confiscated her food and went to bed sulking. Really? Does she think it's normal to nominate her older brother just because she lost? Well, he'll just pray that the other party doesn't take it seriously, though it's too late now. The other party has already arrived behind him. A woman with blonde hair asked if he was Suzuha's older brother, and apologized for being late. She is the student council president of the Royal Academy for the Strongest Female Knights, Yuzuriha Sakuragi. He let her come inside and offered her some tea. The Sakuragi family is one of the 3 ducal families. Their status and authority are said to be second only to that of the royal family. He asked what business she had with them, and Yuzuriha wondered if Suzuha had not told him about yesterday's match. If she remembers correctly, she said that her brother is far, far stronger than her. He knew it. Suzuha, that brat. He knelt down before her and apologized for his little sister. Yuzuriha waved her hand in panic as she wasn't here to blame him for what Suzuha did. He did hear about her having a match yesterday, but he didn't know that her opponent was a great noble, so he apologizes for the trouble his little sister had caused. Yuzuriha asked him to raise his head, as it did not matter whether one is a noble or a commoner. Besides, she was the one who started it all because it's a tradition of their school to have matches to test their abilities. She didn't mean to boast, but she has never lost a single match in the academy, and the match with Suzuha was the first time she'd enjoyed herself in a while. She stood up, slamming her hands on the table and asking if he really was the one who raised her like that. Well, yeah, he was. Yuzuriha questioned if that includes even the post-training massage he gave her that made her body so flexible, and her technique. He thought he should at least do that much since he's her older brother. Then, she asked to confirm if the part about him being stronger than she is true. Well, yeah, he is her older brother, after all. Yuzuriha sat back down, requesting a match. Of course, a serious one. There's a carriage waiting for them outside, so she'd like for them to immediately move elsewhere. Suzuha's brother despaired, so it really does come down to that. They rode the carriage and arrived at an open area in a forest that the Sakuragi family owned. They stood facing each other as Yuzuriha reminded him he did not need to hold back since it's their property. He messed up. She had so much momentum that he couldn't refuse. He wonders if he can just make her give up and let him go home. He raised his hand and asked if she'd prefer it if they were to do this without fighting, but it was immediately rejected. Yuzuriha sighed, telling him to just give it up. But since he isn't a student of the Knights Academy, they'll fight with their fists and not swords. He really wanted to go home, so he just agreed to it. Since he didn't seem like he was up for it, she suggested giving him a reward if she judged that he had done well enough. The money and the imaginary expensive dinner he'll have with Suzuha made him immediately agree. Isn't he being a bit too open about the money? Well, it's a different matter when they're talking about a reward. He told her not to hold back and that they can go at it seriously. In that case, she'll start before he changes his mind. Yuzuriha immediately dashed forward. She was so fast. She raised her fist to punch him, but he was able to dodge, and her fist ended up hitting the tree. Yuzuriha Sakuragi. Because of her godlike strength and exceptional beauty, the people call her the war goddess of slaughter. She retracted her fist back. He may have been able to dodge that, but she won't miss the next one. Yuzuriha, born to the Sakuragi ducal family, had an extraordinary strength that was recognized when she was just 10 years old and made her debut on the battlefield. Before she even enrolled in the Royal Academy for the Strongest Female Knights, she had already defeated over 100,000 enemies. Others would whisper about her matches and her shockingly scary strength. She would find them ridiculous. It's not that she's strong, it's just that everyone else was far too weak. Yuzuriha stared at the trembling MC. She thought it was just a fluke at first, but he seemed to have dodged every single one of her attacks. If those had hit him, he would have died. Yuzuriha crossed her arms, looking away. There was no need to worry as he wouldn't die from that. Probably. It was true that he's better than expected, but he's just been dodging everything and showing no signs of attacking. Suzuha said he was far stronger than her, but it doesn't seem that way. She came here wondering if someone stronger than her appeared and did have a little hope, but it's enough that he's held out this far. It's over now. He looked back and flinched after realizing that he was at the edge of a cliff. He was so desperate in dodging that he didn't even notice it. This is bad. He can't dodge anymore. Yuzuriha raised her fist, rushing towards him. She has always strived to become the strongest, and there is no such thing as someone stronger than her in this entire world. Her fist landed on his face, causing an explosion. Behind him was a cliff, so he couldn't possibly have dodged that. But she was wrong because he was still standing behind all the smoke. His head tilted in confusion. Her punch didn't hurt. Not at all. Yuzuriha thought that was impossible as it was a direct hit. Oh, he got it now. Could she have possibly held back on him? After all, he was a commoner. Yuzuriha could not believe it. That was a direct hit to his face. Was it defense magic? No, he didn't show any signs of using that. This is confusing her. Suzuha's brother, still thinking that Yuzuriha was going easy on her, claimed to understand why she was doing so. It was because he'd definitely die after getting hit by a punch like that. She had some amazing strength. Now he knows why his little sister lost. Yuzuriha was dumbfounded, but soon dashed to kick him in the face. She was not done yet. And then, another punch, and another, and another. She's defeated many enemies thus far. True to its name, her fist was the strongest. But it didn't work at all. His face was shining as if she didn't hit it non-stop. Faced with that fact, Yuzuriha felt excited. Punching, kicking, slapping, smacking, nothing works at all. While she was aiming to become the strongest, she also felt loneliness. And that's when Yuzuriha met him, an absolute being that could dispel her loneliness. She was kneeling on the floor, but she did not seem devastated. Instead, she seemed extremely thrilled that she lost. Back at home, Suzuha squealed in excitement after seeing the delicious food and asked if they were celebrating something. Well, she could put it that way. There was plenty of food, so he told her to eat as much as she liked. She was happy, but soon turned uncomfortably at their dinner table. Sat there was Yuzuriha and an old man. Yuzuriha turned to him and she was about to call him father, wasn't she? Alright, let's ride along with her and just call him Arthur. She was stopping him from eating just yet since they haven't given their thanks for the meal. Suzuha asked why Yuzuriha was in their house, and the person next to her even had sauce on his face. It seems like they had some business with our MC. Arthur cleared his throat and apologized for the late introduction. He was about to introduce himself as Yuzuriha's father, but changed it to being her relative instead. A really distant relative at that. So they didn't have to mind their manners around him. Not even an idiot would believe that. Even Suzuha's brother suspected it. He called himself her father just now. In other words, this man is a great noble too. He just went along with it and asked why they came to their house. It was because Arthur heard that he was the man who defeated his daughter. Now he's just outing himself. Anyway, he was curious to see what kind of man he was, so he came over as fast as he could. Even Suzuha's brother noticed the slip-up, but just decided to not bring it up. It wasn't like he beat her, he was actually being beaten one-sidedly. But Yuzuriha claimed that was not the case at all. She did her best, yet she couldn't leave a single scratch on him. To be honest, she was really panicking back there. That's right, she poured her entire being into that fight. But even then, she couldn't put a scratch on him. What a sturdy physical body. Yuzuriha wondered what he did to become like that. She was so excited to the point that she was bleeding through her nose, and wanted to know the secret behind his strength. Arthur heard that he was the one in charge of Suzuha's training. That was true, though he really has not done much to warrant it as training. If they were fine with it, Arthur and Yuzuriha would like to see the training method. Yuzuriha was sure that there was some sort of secret behind his abnormally sturdy body. If she sees how they train, it'll explain everything. Suzuha's brother agreed to show them the training method once he's finished cleaning up, since it seems like there'll be a pain if he refuses. After cleaning up, he invited them to Suzuha's bedroom that was soon filled with her moans. Suzuha laid bare on her bed as he massaged her body. Since healing magic takes money, it was pretty tough for commoners like them. So he massages her so she can avoid injury. Yuzuriha questioned what part of it was a massage. It's way too lewd. Is he saying that this is the secret to their strength? It's way too perverted. Why would there be training this obscene? Suzuha got up, all dressed up, claiming it really was amazing. Her body felt very light now too. Yuzuriha could not believe that such a perverted massage really works. She asked him to also give her that massage next time, and he clarified that it was just training. Once the two got back to the Sakuragi residence, they went to Arthur's study and talked about Suzuha's brother. It appears there really is more to him than meets the eye. Yuzuriha agreed and believed that that strength of his is something that their dukedom needed right now. So, they must bring him into their dukedom. If they compared him to the royal knights, no, it might be impudent of her, but she dares say that he is the strongest in the country as of the moment. His strength goes far beyond just swordsmanship or martial arts. It was his physical body itself. And that absurd power of his is the result of that erotic massage. It's likely that the massage that he gives is the very reason for his tenacious body. Arthur couldn't believe that that massage had such an effect. If that's true, then it's revolutionary. Yuzuriha agreed that it's a revolution in training and cultivation theory. She suggested inviting him to their house right away so she can indulge in that full-body massage. But Arthur said she must not. She questioned why, and it was because she is the daughter of the Sakuragi family, so she is not allowed to show her bare skin to a commoner. even if that is the true source of their power. A daughter of a great nobleman who has yet to be wed, engaging in something like that. He could only imagine what the world would think, and he's sure that she realizes it too. Moreover, they are not able to invite him into their ranks as of the moment anyway, because of the relationship between the royal family and their dukedom, which involves her. The power she wields on the battlefield is immense, and because of her many achievements, her presence also holds great importance for the country. Nobles are even calling for her to become the next queen. Yuzuriha claimed all of those to be just nonsense. However, her will is irrelevant. So long as she has her lineage, renown, and abilities, it will always remain within the realm of possibility. Currently, the balance of power between their dukedom and the royal family is in a precarious position. That was just with her, but if he were to add Suzuha's older brother, the scales would tip too much, and the nobility would split into two. Arthur was sure that a civil war would erupt over who would succeed the throne, and their will did not have a say in that matter. Yuzuriha tried to protest in panic, and Arthur just calmed her down because in the end, Suzuha's brother would be coming to their dukedom. But for that to happen, careful preparations are necessary. They must make his name known to the nobility, because it is of utmost importance that the royal family does not perceive them as intentionally hiding his existence. To that end, they must bring him into contact with the royalty and nobility. If they did that, Yuzuriha thought that the other nobles might get ahead of them, but Arthur assured her that if that happens, all they had to do was show them the power of the Sakuragi family. However, Yuzuriha was worried that the first princess, Tuko, would not just stay silent. She was certainly a formidable foe, but the royal family had a fatal weakness. It's the fact that the royalty cannot marry commoners, and there have been no exceptions to it in the past. It was the usual day for Suzuha's brother, cooking food, when his little sister Suzuha and Yuzuriha came. He greeted them and thanked Yuzuriha for accompanying his sister today as well. Well, it was natural for her to do. After all, she's the student council president. Suzuha sat on the dining table complaining that Yuzuriha keeps saying that it'd be a problem if she were to get attacked by a hoodlum on the way home, so she insists on accompanying her even if she refuses. Yuzuriha crossed her arms. Of course, it'd be troublesome if something happened to her precious junior. Suzuha's brother was sure that Suzuha would be able to fight off any hoodlums around the area. Yuzuriha tried to come up with an excuse, like she's actually worried about Suzuha accidentally killing the hoodlums once they come at her. And what if the guards manage to spot her like that? It's going to be way harder to explain the situation if that happens. That is why escorting her is necessary. Suzuha insisted that she'll be fine and would not do anything that would bring trouble to her brother. Suzuha's brother was getting tired of their bickering and brought up food, so they immediately shut up and sat down to eat. It's been a month since their match, and Yuzuriha has been coming to their house often. Her reason being that Suzuha was unexpectedly selected for the student council. Apparently, it is unexpected for a commoner to become a member of the student council. To that end, Yuzuriha, the student council president, would guide her on her duties and the like. He thought she was crazy when they first met, but she seems unexpectedly nice. While eating, Yuzuriha asked if they were going to train today as well, and he replied that they will. They do it almost every day after all. The truth is, she had a favor to ask. She wanted him to also give her a massage. Wow. He takes it back. He knew she was actually crazy. He stood up, slamming the table and claiming he couldn't do that. When asked why, he told her that there was no way a commoner like him could touch the bare skin of a great noble's daughter. Her father would definitely kill him, Yuzuriha pleaded, assuring him that she won't let Arthur sentence him to the death penalty, so if he could just do it, even if it's just the tip. He was flabbergasted and questioned what tip. Just then, Suzuha tapped his shoulder and told him to just accept it. The truth is, she didn't really like the idea of him touching other women. However, Yuzuriha seemed to have a keen eye if she was requesting his massage, but he insisted that he couldn't do that sort of massage with anyone but his little sister. Anyway, he asked Yuzuriha to give up on the massage, but he paused upon hearing that she had a reward ready. Fast forward in their house's room, he had prepared a bed for Yuzuriha, and he was sitting on a stool beside it. He ended up accepting it after getting bribed by money. Well, it was for Suzuha's school fees, which are important. That being said, he can't believe he's doing this for money. No, since he accepted it already, he'll go above and beyond. He looked back to the approaching Yuzuriha. She thought she had prepared herself for this, but it was just way too embarrassing. She, who was only wearing her pair of undergarments, hugging herself in embarrassment. Suzuha's brother blushed, gulping upon seeing Yuzuriha's beautiful body. Also, that proportion is crazy. As expected, her style's amazing. She sat on the bed as he began massaging her shoulders. She was so soft, but at the same time, well-toned. He made her lie on her stomach and poured some oil in his hand. This will make it easier for his hands to slide over her body. He started with her bottoms, his fingers brushing in sensitive areas, and causing her grip on the pillow to tighten. The muscles on the lower half of her body were very important. After all, they're very large muscles. He then turned her around and lifted her leg to massage her thighs. He had to be very thorough with this part. Yuzuriha was confused. Something hot was flowing into her from his hands. Was it magic power? Could he be pouring his magic power into her while giving this massage? So, this was the true nature of the massage that can make one stronger. She's never heard of magic power ever being used this way before. Her body has been feeling strange since earlier. He realizes that the pressure point that would have an effect for Yuzuriha was by her stomach. So he massaged her there, earning a squeal from her, telling him he did not need to go any further, but he kept on massaging her stomach and thighs, making Yuzuriha scream. She panted heavily. That felt way too good, so she thanked him. He wondered what she was talking about when they were just getting started. He will definitely put in as much work as he has received for this job. The flushed Yuzuriha tried to tell him it was fine, but he insisted on doing his best, earning another scream from her. The following day, Suzuha walked with her older brother through the forest, asking for his help with the first year's exams. She didn't know the details, but she heard that they pay a daily allowance. He asked why they're asking help from an outsider like him, and she whipped out a letter. Apparently, it was a direct request from Yuzuriha. She sure does have a good eye. Suzuha was sure that if he's the one to do it, any job will become as easy as pie. After arriving at an open area, they saw Yuzuriha and called out to her. He greeted her and asked how she's been feeling ever since the massage, since she seemed to be in a daze for quite a while, so he was worried that she wouldn't make it home safely. Over and over, Yuzuriha couldn't help but, no. She meant it was a very good and invigorating massage. By the way, he noticed her looking around restlessly earlier and asked if she was searching for someone, but he soon froze when a short-haired woman wearing a hat approached them and grabbed his shirt. He turned to the short-haired woman, who claimed to have been wrong. From the information she gathered, he should be a bit more muscly. At least, that's what she thought. When she heard that Yuzuriha lost to him, she was wondering what kind of person he was, but he was surprisingly normal. Yuzuriha recognized her. She's Tuko, the first princess. She told her to get away from Suzuha's brother immediately, but Tuko just clung to him even more. She's having fun seeing Yuzuriha mad, always getting irked so easily. Suzuha's brother turned to her and asked if she's a student of the Royal Academy for the Strongest Knights as well, while Suzuha threw a tantrum behind him. Tuko stepped back, raising her hands, and claimed to not be a student, though she did have something to do with this event. She specializes in magic, so she couldn't possibly become a knight, and was just here to help. Yuzuriha made a comment, but Tuko just called her fussy and told her to shut up. That surprised Suzuha's brother, but Tuko doesn't seem like a bad person. Judging by her looks, she doesn't seem to be a commoner, but for a noble, she seems a bit too down to earth. Tuko noticed that he seemed to be a helper like her, and asked if they had informed him of what he had to do today. Well, wasn't he here to assist the examiner? Wrong answer. The first year's annual exam is goblin extermination, and they are to do it over the course of several days. Their role is to get rid of the idiots that try to interfere with the first year's exam. He panicked and questioned what she meant by getting rid of them, and Tuko just smiled, grabbing Yuzuriha's shoulder. There usually isn't anyone trying to interfere with the exam since they have the famous Yuzuriha here. There's no way someone would have enough free time to interfere with the exam when such a big shot is here, so his job is to go and deal with any enemies with a bam. In other words, he's just a bodyguard. They said it'd be about helping with exams, so he thought he'd be doing some administrative work or something. Tuko assured him not to worry since she'll make sure to instruct him properly. Well, first, she had something for him to do. Students chattered, glancing at Tuko, who was on his shoulders since she didn't have any stamina. I'm not sure whether he's blushing because of the embarrassment or because her melons were squishing the top of his head, but I'd say it's the latter to keep it spicy. Tuko pointed forward, telling him to go as he glanced at Suzuha, throwing a tantrum about Tuko being unfair. He's suddenly worried about what lies ahead. As they walked, an image suddenly flashed in his mind. It was of a ruined village with a woman walking around barefoot, while the siblings hid in an alley. Suzuha hugged her older brother, crying about their parents. He comforted her and promised that he'd become stronger, strong enough to defeat that thing. He was brought back to reality when Tuko called him, asking if something was wrong. He was just remembering the past. More importantly, does she see anything? She looked ahead and claimed to see figures in the direction of the new students. It seems like they're split up into several groups. She asked if he could handle them since there were quite a few of them. It was Suzuha who answered, exclaiming that it was no problem no matter how many there are. That's her older brother. He sighed. There she goes saying that again. He asked about her exam when he realized that she was also a new student. Yuzuriha told him he didn't need to worry about that because if Suzuha participated, she'd probably storm a goblin nest alone and single-handedly wipe it out entirely. So today, she's just here to help out. Now then, she'll be explaining his task again. The enemies are bandits planning to interfere with the new student's exam, and his job is to go on ahead and neutralize them or just make sure that they can't cause any trouble. A separate unit will take care of the rest, so he should come back right away as soon as he's done. He panicked, asking if he was supposed to take them all by himself, and Yuzuriha just nonchalantly replied that he was. He told her not to give him that crap and asked if she wasn't coming with them. Apparently not, since she and Tuko will be guarding the students just in case. Suzuha's eyes lit up and quickly linked her arms with her older brother, saying she'll help him out. If it's them, it'll be over in an instant. She really wasn't lying because the moment they encountered a group of bandits, they were immediately taken down and tied up. Suzuha found his strength to be terrifying. She didn't even need to step up. Tying another bandit, he assured Suzuha that she really helped him out. Since she fought alongside him, it was easier for him to move around. Suzuha stared at the tied-up bandit, commenting that he seemed to still be completely unaware of his own strength, even though he took down everyone by himself. But an obliviously older brother is also cool. A bandit sneaked up behind her, and Suzuha's brother quickly parried his blade with a light sword. He knocked the bandit unconscious like it was nothing while reminding Suzuha to never let her guard down during battle. From the cliff across them, hiding behind the bushes were Tuko and Yuzuriha. Tuko was using her magic to see from there to where the siblings are. She was amazed to see their strength. It was a total cakewalk for them. Yuzuriha chuckled smugly. Those bandits are actually elite foreign units targeting her, and every single one of them is at the level of a high-ranking knight. And yet, they both have no clue. Tuko glanced at her. The two really should have noticed since their equipment is way too fancy for mere bandits. Yuzuriha frowned at Suzuha's brother's denseness, even though he's that strong. It seems like he's the oblivious type. Tuko finds that to be pretty amusing. One of the so-called bandits tried sneaking up on them while they were busy watching the siblings. However, Yuzuriha immediately noticed him. Now then, they should get to work as well. And the two dealt with him using both swordsmanship and magic. Yuzuriha sighed, resting her sword on her back. Seriously, there's no end to insects in this forest? Tuko laughed. There might be some bait around there that they like, implying it's Yuzuriha since they all came for her. Later that night, the siblings slept together on a cloth they laid on the ground. In her sleep, Suzuha asked her older brother if he was tired of sushi and tempura. There's no helping it then. She'll introduce him to a traditional dish from the east called nyotai mori. She giggled, unconsciously hugging him tighter. The two who were sitting by a fire looked at them as if questioning whether whatever they're seeing is all right. Honestly, same. Tuko turned her attention back to Yuzuriha and asked what she was planning. Yuzuriha wondered what she meant, and Tuko pouted, telling her not to play dumb. Why did she introduce Suzuha's older brother to her? The answer is simple. To protect the country. That is the meaning of their dukedom's existence after all. The siblings' strength will undoubtedly be of great service to the kingdom. Conversely, if that power were to fall into enemy hands, it would be an immense threat. Once their strength is discovered, there will be a fierce scramble for them along the nobility, but neither of them will have the power to oppose that. Tuko suspected that must be the reason why their dukedom intends to act as their shield. That was the plan, but Arthur pointed out an issue with it. Those two, plus herself, would create a fighting force surpassing even the royal family. Tuko thought she was exaggerating, but Yuzuriha claimed that's the case now. However, in a few years, she and the siblings will become even stronger than they already are. Strong enough that just the three of them could wipe out an entire country. But that's not the future she wants. Yuzuriha wants their country to be strong and peaceful, a place where the people can live in safety, and the one who will rise to rule it will be Tuko. She respectfully called out Tuko's name, expressing that she wants her to protect both Suzuha and her brother, and the country she will govern. It's been a long time since Yuzuriha called her that, maybe not since they were kids. She always got mad when Yuzuriha called her that, and was the one who told her to drop the formalities. It's because Tuko isn't very good with formalities, and they're already past that kind of relationship. It seems Tuko's going to be the queen, she screamed, scratching her hair out of pressure. It's not like she hadn't thought about it, but she figured it was still far off in the future. Yuzuriha sighed as she watched her. It's true that it's still a long way off since there are many issues that need to be resolved first. Tuko exasperatedly sighed. Just hearing about it is making her tired. Yuzuriha laughed, noticing that she still had that habit of scratching her head, just like when they were kids. It's still something for the future, but Tuko needed to think about it seriously. Meanwhile, careful preparations were necessary if Yuzuriha wants to bring the siblings to her side. She needs to learn more about their personalities, weaknesses, past, and the type of woman that Suzuha's older brother prefers. Tuko crossed her arms, asking why she needed to know his preference. Yuzuriha flinched and stuttered as she tried to come up with an excuse. Aha! Tuko understood now. She nudged Yuzuriha, teasing her. It seems that since she can't marry a commoner due to her being a royalty, Yuzuriha introduced him to her because she thought she wouldn't be interested. Yuzuriha groaned, denying that it's not the only reason, but Tuko teased her for being sneaky. Yuzuriha changed the topic, claiming that what's important is that the siblings hold the key to their future. The next day, Suzuha followed behind her brother, telling him about her dream last night where she was eating sushi. Suzuha's brother looked like he didn't get a good sleep and had a red mark on his cheek, probably the sushi Suzuha was biting in her sleep. She got worried when she noticed the huge dark circles under his eyes. It looked like he just had a terrible nightmare. Suzuha turned to the two, asking if they slept well. Tuko smirked, claiming they got lots of sleep, though Yuzuriha's face says otherwise. Suzuha raised her fist, excited about hunting bandits. Well, Suzuha's brother wouldn't say it's something to be excited about, but still, the forest seemed to have too many bandits and were awfully well equipped. Tuko just made up an excuse that bandits nowadays have fancy gear. He noticed Tuko stopping and asked if something was wrong. Well, not really. She just noticed that the plants around them were unusually withered. She crouched down and informed them that she could sense a faint trace of magic. Yuzuriha wondered if it was the work of a monster, but Tuko wasn't sure because she's never seen a monster capable of doing something like this. Yuzuriha turned to the siblings, asking what they thought. However, they both had dark expressions, and Suzuha was even trembling. Tuko, who was inspecting a leaf, asked what was wrong when they suddenly heard a scream. A man, who seemed to be one of those bandits, emerged from the shadows, asking for help. He reached his hand out towards them, however, it was too late. He had already collapsed, and behind him was a woman, the same woman from Suzuha's brother's memories. She pointed her hand towards them, with magical power gathering in her palm. The four were frozen in shock, but Suzuha's brother was able to warn everyone to get down. He grabbed Suzuha, while Yuzuriha pulled Tuko. In a flash, the trees around them all lost their life force and withered. They observed the woman who had a cold gaze staring back at them. Yuzuriha tried to say something, but she was cut off by Suzuha's brother, telling them to stand back. He apologized to her, and asked her to leave this to him. He left them to Suzuha, who told him to be careful. Yuzuriha did not understand the situation, and asked if he knew who it was and what was going on. He just told them to quickly get to a safe place before unsheathing his light sword. He has to be the one to defeat that thing. He stood before the woman, determined to fight. She had such cold eyes, making him unable to understand what she's thinking about. Or maybe she actually isn't thinking about anything at all. It's just like that day. They were different from a human's. They were a monster's eyes. He looked back at Suzuha and the others, wondering if they're okay. Noticing his stare, Suzuha nodded at him to confirm that they're fine. He gulped, turning back to the woman. His body felt heavy, and his knees felt like they were going to give out at any moment. If he loses, he's definitely going to die. But if he backs down here, everyone will die. So, he can't possibly run away now. He will protect Suzuha and the others, even at the cost of his life. The girls walked to a safer distance. Once settled, Yuzuriha asked who that woman was. She's the white-haired vampire, sometimes called the wandering white-haired vampire. She appears in the world once every few decades and is said to steal away all life that it lays its eyes on, a demon from legend. She and her older brother actually encountered that demon once before. Tuko could not believe it, insisting that was impossible because she's never heard of a single person who survived after encountering the white-haired vampire. But it's the truth. That demon appeared in their village when she was around 5 years old. In no time at all, the villagers and their family perished, and the village was laid to waste. Only the two of them managed to survive. But if the opponent really is that demon, then they can't possibly let him fight it alone. Yuzuriha suggested going back because fighting that monster all alone was far too reckless. However, Suzuha stopped them. Ever since that day, her older brother has been desperately training, day after day. If they try to interfere, they may only get in his way. Yuzuriha protested, worried that something bad would happen to Suzuha's brother at this rate. Still, she stopped them. If they're going to get in her older brother's way, then she'll stop them even if she had to die to do it. Back to Suzuha's brother, the white-haired vampire raised her hand to attack him, so he quickly ran to the side. The magic in her hand expanded into a huge ball of magic before she released it, going past Suzuha's brother and grazing his cheek. It passed through the forest, destroying everything in its way. Anything that was hit by her attack decayed and disintegrated. If he gets hit, it'll probably be instant death. He dashed towards her, raising his light sword. He just had to attack before he got hit. His light sword was able to reach her chest and sliced through. He stepped back, relieved that it connected. If he just kept attacking, he'd be able to do it. Or so he thought. He was baffled when he heard the white-haired vampire laughing despite the cut on her chest, and felt chills all over his body. The white-haired vampire bit her hand, and the blood that dripped down materialized and turned into her claws. The blood transformed. He flinched when the white-haired vampire suddenly disappeared and reappeared before him, attempting to catch him with her claws. He immediately used his light sword to push her hand away, gritting his teeth as more blood spilled. The three watched the fight from a distance, with Tuko and Suzuha finding him amazing for fighting on even terms with that legend. However, Yuzuriha realized that something was off. His movements are slowing down. As she wondered why, she looked around the area. Even the trees that weren't hit by the white-haired vampire's attacks have withered. Why is that? Is there some sort of attack that they can't see? Wait, no, it can't be. She quickly informed Suzuha that her older brother's going to lose this fight at this rate. When asked what she meant, Yuzuriha explained what she realized. The white-haired vampire's attacks steal her opponent's life force. She's sure that he thinks that as long as he doesn't get hit directly, there will be no effect. But even if he hasn't been hit by an attack, his life force is still being drained. It's very possible that the white-haired vampire herself is emitting some sort of magic that drains the life force of those around her. And the longer he fights, the more his stamina will drain. At this rate, he's going to lose. Suzuha couldn't believe what she was hearing. She remembered back then her older brother would come home late and dirty. Even when she asks where he went, he'll just say he got lost and prepared dinner like normal afterwards. Where he was going and what he was doing. She was aware of it all. Ever since that day, he's been training himself. Day after day, he subjected himself to intense training that would leave his body in tatters. Her older brother is strong. Compared to someone like her, he's far, far stronger. He has been undergoing such intense training all so that he could defeat the white-haired vampire, and even told her that he didn't need to worry. No, he's just always been pretending to be strong so that he could protect her, his little sister. Yuzuriha asked Tuko what's going to happen if he loses here. Since they were in the kingdom's vicinity right now, the worst-case scenario would be their country falling into danger. Yuzuriha apologized to Suzuha, as she will be passing through. Suzuha grabbed onto her cape to stop her, claiming they'd just get in the way. However, as a knight of their kingdom, Yuzuriha had a duty to protect it. She patted Suzuha's head and assured her that she won't get in her older brother's way. Suzuha did not protest anymore and instead silently cried. Yuzuriha asked Tuko to take care of the rest and left to join the battle. Even if it's Suzuha's brother, fighting the white-haired vampire all alone is reckless. Was he planning to die trying to protect them? No way she'll allow that. A crow flew right by them and ended up dying, falling to the ground. Suzuha's brother breathed heavily, questioning what power she had. He can't let this drag on. At this rate, he'll be completely drained before he can land his next attack. Before that happens, he had to do something. He jumped to the side, dodging the white-haired vampire's attacks, and calming himself down as he needed to focus on her next attack. The white-haired vampire raised her hand to attack him. However, before it could reach him, Yuzuriha stood in between them, taking on the attack instead. His eyes widened in confusion, calling out to Yuzuriha, but seeing that she wasn't answering, he quickly cut off the white-haired vampire's hand that stabbed through Yuzuriha's chest and backed up while holding her. As the injured Yuzuriha lost consciousness, a memory from when she was a kid flashed in her mind. Her father, Arthur, had praised her for being amazing, just as expected of his daughter. A member of one of the 3 ducal households, the Sakuragi family, and the daughter of a great noble. That's Yuzuriha. To become strong, she was to be given everything. Ducal refinement, swordsmanship, and martial arts. And then, a fitting marriage partner. But ever since she was a child, she had decided to fall in love with someone stronger than her. Yes, someone strong like Suzuha's brother. As the daughter of a ducal family, her marriage partner would be chosen by her father. So, at the very least, she wanted to choose her romantic partner, which is our MC, Suzuha's older brother. She slowly opened her eyes and the first thing she saw was the MC. She mumbled something incoherent as she began to regain consciousness. The 3 were in tears, and relieved to see that she was awake. She sat up, wondering what had happened. If she remembered correctly, she took on that demon's attack and passed out. This didn't make sense. Why is she not dead? It was clearly a fatal wound, but Suzuha's brother healed her. Yuzuriha was surprised to know that he was actually a really skilled healer. But that's not it at all. She remembered about the white-haired vampire and asked what happened to it. With a somber expression, Suzuha's brother informed her that he let her get away. But it's a miracle that he's still alive after facing that demon. Tuko stood up, informing them that the students realized that there was someone fighting and immediately retreated, so everyone was safe. It really was a miracle, and it was all thanks to Suzuha's brother. However, he cut her off, and instead claimed that it was actually all thanks to her. It's all because she risked her life to divert the white-haired vampire's attention that they managed to drive her away. So, it was all thanks to her, not him. Yuzuriha tried to protest, saying he's got it all wrong. But seeing their assuring faces made her slowly accept it. To think that she would be praised even in this tattered, near-death state, and that it would make her so happy. This wouldn't happen with just anyone either. It doesn't matter who they are. It was because her partner, who she could even risk her life for, complimented her that she was this happy. Anyway, he apologized to her because although he had healed her body, a scar remained on her chest due to his lacking abilities. Tuko vouched that he really did his best. It just can't be helped since he wasn't even a healer or anything. Still, it was a pretty big scar. Once they returned to the capital, Tuko suggested for her to have it checked with a professional healer. She was sure that they could make it pretty again. Yuzuriha thought that might be a problem though, confusing Tuko. It was just that the scar was fine as it was. This scar for Yuzuriha is a badge of honor for having gone through a life-or-death battle with her comrades, so there's no way she can erase it. Once they got back to the capital, Suzuha's brother was personally summoned to the Sakuragi ducal family's residence, probably because he had left a permanent mark on the duke's precious daughter. His thoughts were running wild, hoping they'll be satisfied if he alone committed seppuku. If Suzuha can just be spared, then he'd gladly pass on to the afterlife. His rambling was interrupted when the door to Arthur's study opened and he peeked out, asking what he was doing and what he's been rambling about since earlier. He should just hurry and come inside. Once inside, he sat down on the sofa while Arthur poured himself a drink. When Arthur sat down across from him, he apologized as it appears his daughter Yuzuriha has been careless. Seeing the confused expression on his face, Arthur specified that he was talking about how Yuzuriha had a hole blown in her torso. Suzuha's brother reasoned that she was just trying to save him, but Arthur believed otherwise. Arthur believed that he deliberately created that opening in order to lure that demon closer. He's heard everything from Tuko. If he had really used his power, he could have easily escaped, but it sounded like he was trying to cut off any escape routes. Suzuha's brother just smiled and thought Arthur was looking too deep into it, and even if that were the case, it's true that he was only saved thanks to Yuzuriha. Thanks to the opening she created, he was able to inflict a fatal wound on the white-haired vampire. Thanks to that as well, they barely had any injuries. Though it is frustrating that he was just one step short of killing it. Now, all he had left was just its right arm. He bowed down, apologizing about Yuzuriha being gravely injured. Arthur was speechless for a moment before saying that the white-haired vampire is a calamity capable of annihilating an entire nation, so he could even say it's a miracle that nobody died. Therefore, he shouldn't think that he was at fault for letting it get away. The wound his daughter suffered is a result of her own actions. And as for him, he would like to express his gratitude to the hero who saved his daughter and the kingdom. He was about to protest, but Arthur cut him off. He didn't know what kind of connection he had with that demon, but a man who cannot even accord every courtesy to his daughter's savior is a failure. Not just as a nobleman, but also as a human being. He wouldn't want Arthur to become such a man, would he? The way he phrased it made it difficult to refuse. Arthur just smiled. He knew exactly what he did. He may request money or anything else he wished, though Arthur personally recommended a life peerage, and in the future, marriage with someone from his family. The dad's playing Cupid, I see. Anyway, Suzuha's brother immediately waved his hands to decline, insisting that he couldn't accept such a generous show of gratitude. As expected of a noble, letting his guard down around them would be a mistake. He needs to think of something that could satisfy Arthur. He spoke up, kindly requesting that Arthur become a guardian for both him and his little sister Suzuha from now on. With the protection of the Sakuragi family, his sister will have an easier life in an academy full of nobles. Even now, he still puts his sister first, so Arthur questioned if he really was alright with that. He was alright with it because if he asked for a reward any greater than this, it would be difficult to request aid when he's really in trouble. He didn't take the bait for a short-term gain, and chose to look at the long term. He isn't just strong, he has a good head on his shoulders as well. Arthur tried to push further, telling him that he might not get another opportunity like this again. If that's the case, so be it. Suzuha's brother was satisfied with this. Their conversation was interrupted when they suddenly heard a loud scream. The two walked out of Arthur's study to check, when a maid came rushing to report to the Duke that Yuzuriha's skin surgery to remove her scar was successful. However, she started to go on a rampage after she saw her flawless body. The two were concerned to hear that, and Arthur wondered if it was the side effect of the healing magic. That was not the case. Apparently, Yuzuriha asked them to give her back the proof of her bond with Suzuha's older brother, as she went on a rampage while completely naked. Arthur could only sigh at that idiotic daughter of his. Seeing his exasperated expression, Suzuha's brother volunteered to help out, which Arthur gratefully accepted because he knew he wouldn't be able to stop her. Suzuha's brother opened the door to Yuzuriha's bedroom and witnessed her choking the healer without any clothes on. Yuzuriha blushed and shouted in embarrassment while he covered his eyes. Partially. Yuzuriha questioned why he was there, and he explained that he was speaking with her father just now. She asked what they were talking about, her body now covered with a cloth. Girl, that's covering nothing. She wondered if they talked about him becoming Arthur's son-in-law, but she was mistaken. Why did she even come to that conclusion? Anyway, he's glad that her scar has been healed, but Yuzuriha angrily waved her fist. It's not good at all. That was her badge of honor. He turned away from her, still blushing, and assured her that even without something like that, they're all still grateful to her. Yuzuriha was extremely touched and asked if she could call him her partner now. He looked at her suspiciously. Seriously, what was that about that? A few weeks later, he was summoned to the Sakuragi residence again, and a maid guided him to a room. He asked her if this was because he did something again, but the maid wondered what he was talking about. She is simply leading him to the room where Yuzuriha and the others are. They finally arrived and the maid smiled, complimenting everyone's cuteness. He was confused as they entered the room when he saw the three women all dressed up. He wondered what those outfits were for, and Suzuha explained that Arthur prepared them for them to wear. Tuko asked if he did not hear anything about it, when Arthur suddenly appeared behind him, telling him it was a victory party, a celebration for driving away that demon, the white-haired vampire. Suzuha's brother was worried that others would say that it was a made-up story, but Arthur pointed out that they had the arm that he cut off from the demon. Arthur didn't know what he was thinking, but apart from him, the only record of someone having cut off a part of a demon's body was from around 1,300 years ago. Back then, only a single finger had been cut off, and the man who had accomplished it would later become the supreme ruler who unified the continent. Suzuha's brother thought that sounded amazing, making Arthur speechless as he looked at him. Well, whatever. He saved his daughter's life and even cut off the arm of a demon, so he will be grandly introduced to the world as a true hero. Suzuha and the others were happy for him, however. That was not the case for him. When he says, introducing, it's not what he was thinking of, right? Arthur tilted his head in confusion. Well, isn't it obvious it'd be like that? Suzuha's brother internally despaired. If that were to happen, it would be a problem. He's just a commoner who got acquainted with the daughter of a duke by chance. If they introduce him like that, it'll get really troublesome. He had to refuse this no matter what. Suzuha slowly inched closer, pulling on his shirt with her eyes sparkling at the thought of sushi being served at the party. He just agreed. He really can't win against his little sister's smile and appetite. When they were asked to help for the Academy's exam, a demon of legend, the white-haired vampire, suddenly appeared and attacked. After a fierce battle, they managed to drive away the demon of legend, and today, at the party, Arthur announced the threat of the merciless demon had passed. So today, they shall dedicate this banquet to them, Yuzuriha, Tuko, Suzuha, and her older brother, the ones who repelled a monster from legends. Suzuha's brother felt it was seriously out of place for a commoner like him to be standing in a fancy place like this. Even the nobles are making faces that scream, "Who is this guy?" He decided to just drink champagne because getting involved with nobles and politicians will lead to nothing good. He's glanced at Suzuha, who was drooling at the sight of the many dishes she's never seen before, as expected of a party for nobles. He sighed, thinking it was fine since Suzuha looked so happy. She couldn't just stand still, she had to charge and eat those dishes. He just reminded her not to fall as she rushed off. All the food on the table disappeared in a flash and were all brought to her plate, causing the chefs to panic and hurry to bring more food. Yuzuriha approached him, asking if he was enjoying the party, along with Tuko, who was laughing at the chefs that seemed to be in a big panic. Well, he is enjoying the party, and Suzuha is having a lot of fun as well. Eating is indeed a lot of fun. Anyway, Yuzuriha was glad to hear that. There's a lot more food, so there's no need to hold back. That being said, she shyly asked him if he liked to dance, which he denied. After all, commoners didn't really do that. In that case, it's settled. Yuzuriha grabbed his hand and dragged him to the dance floor. Since they were here already, they should take the chance to dance and get used to it. Tuko, who was extremely supportive, told everyone to clear a path since Yuzuriha was coming through. He tried to protest, but Yuzuriha had already held his hand and started dancing. He had absolutely no say. She praised him for moving pretty well, as expected of someone who trains their reflexes. In the end, Yuzuriha is just inherently pushy. Suzuha's brother internally groaned. He could feel the jealous gazes of the nobles piercing through him. Right, Yuzuriha is the young lady of a great noble's house. He was starting to wonder if it's really alright for a commoner like him to be dancing with her, when she suddenly exclaimed how dancing with him like this felt like a dream. The truth is, she's always wanted to do something like this. On the battlefield, she's usually called the war goddess of slaughter, but to wear a wonderful dress like this and to dance with him just like a regular girl is worth dying for. Suzuha's brother felt more gazes stabbing through him. Those words really don't sound like a joke if coming from her. When he turned back, he noticed a hooded figure throw something towards them. He immediately pulled Yuzuriha towards him, causing the attack to pass through. Yuzuriha was flustered from his sudden action, but he was more focused on the attack. Just now, was that a needle from a blowgun? Tuko smirked after seeing him being so bold all of a sudden, while Suzuha, whose mouth was full with pasta, complained about wanting to dance with her brother too, not knowing he was dealing with an attack. While everyone was speculating, he was worried that someone was targeting them. They had to get out of there right now. He tried to warn Yuzuriha, but another needle shot towards them, so he ended up swinging her and apologizing. Yuzuriha, who had no idea of what was happening, was blushing profusely and wondering what was going on with him because he was being all rough all of a sudden. Could this be a courtship dance? She had a proud smile, thinking that his feelings for her just slipped out while they were dancing. Well, she is wearing a bold dress right now, so it's only natural. Delusional final boss. She was daydreaming, while he was stressing because of the attacks coming their way. He'd like to have the party halted right away, but there would be a possibility of them attacking in the chaos. The situation isn't good. At the very least, he should find out where it's coming from. He noticed another attack incoming and immediately dragged Yuzuriha under a table to take cover. She flushed red in embarrassment as the robed figure suddenly vanished. Looks like they erased their presence upon realizing they failed. That means they're fine for now. Yuzuriha stutteringly called for his attention, so he turned to her, asking if she was hurt anywhere. She claimed that what he was doing was quite aggressive, or rather it was a bit too much, especially in a place with so many people. He screamed and backed away, apologizing after realizing that he was hovering on top of her. From a distance, Tuko watched them in confusion, wondering what they were doing, while the still-eating Suzuha hated seeing her brother have fun without her. After the party ended, he informed them of the assassin and showed the needle they used as a weapon. The tip of the blowgun should be coated in poison. If that had hit Yuzuriha, she wouldn't have just walked it off, so he was glad that she was alright. Yuzuriha looked down in confusion. In other words, he was just moving to dodge the assassin's attack. It wasn't a courtship dance. He watched her, wondering what she was doing, and informed them that their presence is long gone, so they must have already fled. Tuko observed the needle. Many countries are out for Yuzuriha's life, so they were probably after her. He asked what she meant by that, and Tuko took that opportunity to explain. Back when they accompanied the Royal Academy first years, he must have felt like there was an awfully surprising number of bandits. All of them were actually elite foreign units, and were just posing as bandits. They belonged to an enemy country targeting Yuzuriha, working alongside a traitor from this nation. During that expedition, they leaked information about Yuzuriha on purpose to set a trap. They gave away some incomplete intelligence in order to identify who exactly that traitor was. And thanks to him and Suzuha, it was a great success. Though he doesn't believe that to be the case, and thought they were at a level where even an ordinary commoner like him could capture them. There are so many things Tuko wanted to point out, but it's a pain, so she decided to just leave it be. The truth is, their country is in a pretty precarious state right now. There's a power struggle among the military's top brass, and they're divided into the factions of the first prince and the second prince who were fighting non-stop. They have no regard for the citizens, and just always going at it. The one always having to clean up after the battlefield is Yuzuriha, but those two don't seem too happy about it. They feel all good about themselves, taking all the credit, yet they treat Yuzuriha like a nuisance, clinging to some petty grudge. If an enemy country does succeed in removing Yuzuriha, their country would lose a key line of defense. With that, taking over a country whose princes are exhausted by internal strife wouldn't be such a tall order. Regardless, plenty of people inside and out intend to cut Yuzuriha out of the picture. Even if it's just that crazy of a country, they still had to uphold their duty as nobles. That's why she's trying her best to quell the problems. Yuzuriha and Suzuha's brother went outside the balcony to get some fresh air. She apologized for her carelessness today that gave the enemy an opening. She turned to him, smiling. He always ends up having to save her, and she appreciates it. She has to express her gratitude next time. He didn't know Yuzuriha was facing such a situation. If that were him, he would never be at ease. He held out his hand, offering to redo their dance and making Yuzuriha blush. It just seemed like a waste with the whole fiasco earlier. Well, it's fine if she didn't want to. Yuzuriha's face turned red as she struggled to respond, until finally she took his hand, agreeing to his offer. However, the pouting Suzuha appeared between them and questioned what he was doing while she's having the time of her life feasting. She doesn't remember raising such an immoral older brother. He tried to explain, but Suzuha grabbed his coat, asking for a dance as well. Just then, Tuko came out to the balcony and joined in on them, thinking it looked fun. The three surround him, clinging to different parts of his body. At the same time, the two guards guarding the royal castle were talking about the military's top brass sending people into the ogre's great sea of trees. That place is dangerous. They've heard that over 100,000 ogres roam there. His fellow guard with a long black hair asked which unit was being dispatched, but they weren't dispatching a unit, just 3 people. The black-haired guard thought that was insane. Even experienced knights can't do much there. Was this a joke? It was way too dangerous. Rumor has it that the ogres in there aren't the typical ogres either, so those fellows they're dispatching won't be able to return safely. After a few days, a carriage passed through the forest. Inside it were Yuzuriha, Suzuha, and her brother. He wondered if they were almost there, as they've been going pretty fast thanks to Yuzuriha's carriage. It's the Sakuragi family's safe, secure, and comfortable carriage after all. It'd have been nice if Tuko could come along as well, though. The place they're going to is a joint base with a neighboring country. He was excited to know what kind of people they are. The ogre's great sea of trees is a dangerous place that is said to hold over 100,000 ogres. Many of them are mutants. Even experienced knights wouldn't dare challenge them alone. He was surprised when he first heard about it. They aren't even soldiers, so to suddenly send them on a mission like this was baffling. On top of that, it's a defense mission, but they've left it to just the 3 of them. However, he actually felt relieved when he heard that they'd be defending alongside the people from the other country. Yuzuriha blew on her tea, confirming that they'd cooperate. Probably. That made him confused, but couldn't ask more because Suzuha pointed outside the window as she can now see the ogre's great sea of trees and the people who look like they're from the other country. When they got off, they saw countless buffed women fighting against each other. They were, to say the least, shocked to see the scene before them, except Yuzuriha. She informed them that these girls are the Amazons. Suzuha's brother was surprised to hear about the Amazons, the one from the legends. Yuzuriha can't blame them for thinking that way. After all, they rarely show themselves to other people. The Amazons are the strongest warrior tribe, made up entirely of women. They've never gone too far out of their territory, until now. But they all changed when their leader changed a few years ago. Their new chief's overwhelming charisma led to territorial expansion, and eventually, they seized control of the entire neighboring country. Although, it seemed like a peaceful transfer on the surface. By the way, this was confidential information, so they could not let it leak. He thought that their chief was insanely capable, which Yuzuriha agreed with. Her political ability was nothing to scoff at, but her talent in military affairs was even more frightening. He thought that since the Amazons are really that capable, then their group should be pretty well relieved. Even Suzuha is relieved to have such strong allies. However, they can't say that for certain yet. Whether or not they cooperate with them lies with him, Suzuha's older brother. There's no question looking at the Amazons based on their ability alone, but those girls extremely hate men. Two of the Amazon women approached them, questioning why there was a weak-looking man there. The short-haired woman was the chief of the Amazons, Shion, while the long-haired woman next to her was Kanan. The three introduced themselves as well, and Shion tilted Suzuha's brother's chin up. She seemed unhappy about the fact that their country only sent the three of them, and on top of that, one is a man. Yuzuriha thought they must feel uncomfortable, however. She asked them to allow her to provide an explanation first. Their country's military is currently facing some trouble for this matter. Such and such, blah blah blah. Anyway, they were talking about things that the siblings did not understand, so they decided to just leave it to Yuzuriha. Shion understands what she's trying to say, but that doesn't matter. The problem is Suzuha's brother. Yuzuriha tried to explain about him, but they cut her off. Words won't suffice to explain it. Since she kept claiming that he was incredibly strong, they challenged him to a duel. If he wins, they'll acknowledge his presence. They looked down at him, waiting for his answer, but all he could see was their melons. Was it because he was aggressively approached by beauties who were impressive in more ways than one that he ended up agreeing without thinking? Now that he thought about it, it was only natural to assess the abilities of someone they'd have a united front with. Therefore, he had to do his best and get them to acknowledge him. They stood in an open area with the Amazon surrounding them. The two women were each holding an axe, while he was using his usual light sword. Shion explained that the match will end when one side surrenders or is killed, and asked if there were any objections. He claimed there was none, though he was internally panicking after he heard them say something rather unsettling just now. Kanan noticed his light sword and thought it looked way too wimpy, so she suggested lending one of theirs. How considerate of her. Well, it's true that it can't exactly be called a good weapon, but if he were to use theirs haphazardly and break it, he'd just feel bad. So, he declined their offer, and claimed he could even fight without a weapon if he had to. The two flinched and burned in anger, thinking that he was provoking them, and began to attack the confused MC. He dodged Shion's axe, but Shion raised her axe and sneered at his foolishness. There's no way such feeble legs could possibly stagger their well-trained bodies. However, she froze when she felt something hit her stomach. It was the hilt of his light sword, causing her to get blasted away. Kanan could not believe it, wondering what he just did. He merely hit Shion with the hilt of his light sword, and she flew back. Does that mean his strength surpasses even that of an Amazon? That means he's no regular human. However, she still believed that she could clutch this. She asked Shion to give her her axe, which Shion quickly threw. Once she got it, she held both axes in her hands, thinking he must have planned to blow Shion away, so he only needed to take on one opponent. But he's far too naive. He shouldn't underestimate them. She threw the axe, but it broke after hitting his fist. Kanan stepped back, thinking it was impossible. She couldn't believe what she was seeing, to think that attacks from them couldn't even leave a scratch on him. When he noticed the broken axe, he picked it up in panic and immediately apologized. Meanwhile, Suzuha and Yuzuriha cheered happily with his victory. However, Suzuha noticed the sudden shift of the atmosphere around them and asked just to be sure if the Amazons were the type to fall for a man only when he's stronger than them. Yuzuriha hasn't heard about anything like that, so hopefully not. It is said that the reason Amazons dislike men so much is because they do not recognize weak men as equals of the opposite sex. It sounds admirable to be independent, but in reality, they are just an army of women starved for men. So, supposing a man appears who is even stronger than the chief, who is supposed to be the strongest in the tribe, that man may just become the very first person they acknowledge as a member of the opposite sex. Later that night, they all shared a meal together, with Shion and Kanan feeding Suzuha's brother. Suzuha slammed the table repeatedly in frustration, questioning how long they were planning to stick like glue to her brother because the spot next to him naturally belonged to her, his little sister. But it can't be helped. After all, this is how Amazonian hospitality works. Suzuha got mad at her perverted brother who seemed to enjoy being squished by their giant marshmallows, and asked Yuzuriha to say something to him as well. Kanan warned Yuzuriha that it was the finest service their tribe could offer. If anyone gets in the way of their hospitality, the Amazons will fight, down to their very last. Yuzuriha gulped in nervousness. To get on the Amazons' bad side would not be ideal for diplomacy, so she apologized to Suzuha and asked her to hold back for now. They just smiled smugly, and Suzuha, who's had enough, screamed that the only one who can call her brother their brother is her. Suzuha ended up falling asleep, mumbling how she'll never forgive them for pushing their big melons onto her brother. It's okay, Suzuha. Let your brother get some. He sighed, worried that she'll catch a cold if she slept there. Yuzuriha also went to bed early, so it can't be helped. He'll just get Suzuha's futon. As he was about to do that, Shion suddenly whispered to his ear and asked him to come with them. He was getting more and more worried when he noticed that the direction they were going was where the chief's sleeping quarters were. Once inside, he wondered what they were planning, bringing him to a place like this. He apologized as he really needed to go back to his tent when the two suddenly took their clothes off. If you could even call those clothes. They approached him, wanting to get even stronger. He fell back on the bed in shock, and Xion brought his hand to her chest, asking for his special massage. While Suzuha and the others were on the defense mission, something was brewing beneath the surface of the capital. There was a plot to rout all the princes caught up in the power struggle for the throne. The plan was to stage a coup d'etat in order to make the first princess Tuko the next queen. Tuko received a letter by her window and was relieved to read that the Amazons were convinced, as expected, of Suzuha's brother. A coup breaking out would be the perfect situation for other countries to take advantage of and invade. And with this, they've pretty much prevented the Amazons from invading. She wanted to lessen the odds of their invasion as much as possible because on top of the Amazons being insanely strong, their loyalty is practically endless. If they couldn't suppress them first, it would have been too scary to continue. Still, they called him Talon, a title granted only to the most special of men. That means they've acknowledged that he's far stronger than they are. Well, she did purposefully leak information about him beforehand, but she didn't expect for them to like him so much. This might mean that a strong rival has appeared in the race to win him over. If Yuzuriha and the others get into a fight with the Amazons, then she might have to break custom to calm the situation and become his wife. Well, there's no other choice, right? At the same time, at the base in the ogre's great sea of trees, Suzuha's brother asked the two to calm down as they sandwiched him between them and poured oil all over their bodies. When they asked him to follow them earlier, he never thought that it would have been for this. This is a dangerous situation no matter how he looks at it. He asked them again to move away, but they cut him off and instead put some oil on him as well. At that moment, the door opened and Suzuha entered, witnessing the two putting oil on his body. He tried to explain that it was all a misunderstanding, but she had already ran away, calling him a traitor. And that's what happened. Then, he asked Yuzuriha what she thinks he should do. She didn't know that happened while she was asleep. Anyway, she asked what Suzuha said about it, causing him to slump down. He tried to explain afterward, but she's been doing this certain thing. He doesn't even know how to say it. She wondered what it was. Was she ignoring him? He thought that actually might have been better, but no. Suddenly, Suzuha came up behind them, loosening her top and claiming it was hot. She turned to them, wondering why he was giving her such a strange look. She was trying really hard to appeal. Yuzuriha turned to him, whispering that she was indeed acting pretty strange. Suzuha told them to hurry since they'll be late for their patrol, but the two just responded that they'll follow soon. There she has it. Like Suzuha was doing just now, she's been excessively showing off her skin and sticking to him. And just when he thought he had her figured out, she'd suddenly get mad or act cold. Yuzuriha believed that was the maiden's heart. Because of what happened when they arrived, the Amazons have always been all over him, and Suzuha's been acting all weird like that because she felt like her brother was getting taken away. In short, he should keep his interactions with the Amazons to a minimum from now on, and making her, she's suddenly included, and Suzuha the top priority, would be for the better. But he thought that acting like that towards the Amazons would be bad for them. In that case, she'll try to get those two out of his hair for today, so he and Suzuha can go spend the entire day alone together. In other words, a date. He was confused by the sudden date as they were siblings. However, that's not an issue. Dates between fellow girls and even siblings seem to be the norm these days. As for what he'll do, anything is fine as long as he's able to spend the day together, whether it's training, a massage, or preparing Suzuha's favorite food. He stood up, thanking Yuzuriha, and was about to leave when she stopped him to say that he had to go on a date with her eventually, once that was all over. When questioned why, she explained that it was because he consulted with her so much, so she had a duty to see if what she told him was really enough to make Suzuha happy. She was definitely not thinking about being alone with him, training while sticking close to him, receiving a full-course massage from him, or eating his homemade cooking. So, he shouldn't get her wrong. It's not like she wants to go on a date with him or anything. Anyway, that should be enough to satisfy his little sister, so he should get to it. Suzuha was standing alone by a tree, thinking how both her brother and Yuzuriha were both late. She wondered if he was going to be together with the Amazons today as well. It's been 2 weeks since they got here, and they've been continuously sticking to him and even calling him Talon, even though she's his little sister. Her head immediately turned when her brother called her, like a dog. He apologized for keeping her waiting, but she just turned her head away, even though she was obviously happy with her tail wagging like that. She asked about Yuzuriha, and he told her they'd be the only ones moving about today. She glared at him even though she was beaming with joy at the thought of them being alone together. Then, she suddenly exclaimed in shock when he asked her to go on a date with him. She was blushing madly as she reminded him that they were siblings, but he assured her that it's normal, or at least that's what Yuzuriha said. He grabbed her hand. Since they're going to be together the entire day, he'll also make her favorite food. Suzuha's eyes shone at the thought of going on a date with her brother. They'll probably walk with arms around each other, feed each other, or hold each other's hands, and he even prepared a gift for her. She was so excited, thinking it was a ring. But no, it was a wooden sword. He made it using some proper wood because it'd be troubling if they had a date, which he sees as training, by the way, without them. He even has one as well. Suzuha waved the sword in frustration and disappointment, but he mistook it as her being pumped up. Her brother really is an idiot. Suzuha was still pouting and sulking even when it was time for the massage. Since it's her first time in a while, they had to properly ease her tension and asked if it hurt anywhere, to which she answered no. She knew it was strange for him to bring up a date, but they're just doing training and a massage like they usually do. She asked if the Amazons were really alright with this, and he told her that Yuzuriha was moving with them today. Seriously, this doesn't seem like a date at all. Though it did feel good, he was just massaging her body like usual. But she was still so happy to be spending time together with him like this. Suzuha pouted, looking away from him. She felt so lonely because it seemed like those Amazons were going to take him away from her, and he was even hiding from her to do some slippery play with them. Also, they call him Talon, when she was supposed to be the only one who calls him brother. About that, he explained that Talon doesn't necessarily mean big brother, it just seems to be what the Amazons call a man they've acknowledged, and no matter what happens, she will always be his little sister. Suzuha finally got up, smiling. She was so glad. After that date, Suzuha came to Yuzuriha's tent to thank her. She would ask what she was talking about, but playing dumb here is useless. Suzuha agreed, and asked to confirm if the date was her idea, because there was no way that her super thick-headed brother would ever think of it. Yuzuriha asked what merit does she gain by letting the two of them go on a date, and Suzuha thought it was that she'd owe Yuzuriha a favor. She did it to increase the number of cards she can use when dealing with Amazons. After all, the Amazons have really taken a liking to her brother. They might even just yell out, "Become our groom," at any moment. But if that happened, Yuzuriha would be troubled. It seems she understood, and was about to ask Suzuha something, but she immediately refused before she could even finish her sentence. Suzuha figured that Yuzuriha was probably going to ask her to take her side. While she's grateful to her, this and that are different matters. Considering her brother's happiness, she still needed to see who is more fitting for him between Yuzuriha and the Amazons. And so, she's decided that there's no reason for her to immediately take her side in this matter. What a wonderful little sister she is to put her brother first. But it seems she's forgotten something. Suzuha questioned what she was talking about, so Yuzuriha explained. She made a hypothetical scenario of Suzuha's brother getting married to the Amazons, and Suzuha insisted that she will be his little sister no matter what happens, so her position will never waver. Yuzuriha chuckled, wondering if that's really the case. Knowing her brother, would he really prioritize his little sister over his partner? For example, even if they split it equally, there will still be two on their side. When that happens, her position will only be a third of what it once was, since the Amazons are twins. However, Yuzuriha was alone. So, if she were to get married to her brother, his affection would only have to be split in half. In other words, halfsies. If Suzuha chooses her, compared to the Amazons, the deal will be 1.5 times better. Suzuha suddenly grabbed her shoulders, her eyes sparkling as she gave in to her suggestion. She sure changes sides pretty easily. Suzuha cheered as she walked out of Yuzuriha's chambers. She normally seems put together, but she's strangely airheaded, just like her older brother. A few days later, the two invited Suzuha's brother to go into the ogre's great sea of trees since they've only been patrolling the entrance this whole time, so they should look inside too, just in case. Yuzuriha was sure that it wouldn't be a problem for him. They just had to move together and watch each other's backs. After a while of convincing, they finally got him to agree. The two chuckled and whispered to each other. It appears that their plan to split him away from the Amazons is a success. If it's for the mission, then Yuzuriha was sure that those twins won't be able to complain about anything. With this, they'll be able to close the gap with him faster than those girls. Well, speaking of the devil, the twins approached from behind after hearing their conversation. They were getting pumped up just thinking of the fights ahead. If they participate in this fight, they'll surely receive the greatest of praises and envy from their tribe. So, they will be joining them too. He thanked them, while the two from the back just collapsed in annoyance. Their plan was ruined. Kanan suggested limiting the group to just 5 of them since the ogres will notice them if they move as a large group. Shion agreed, and decided to go with this small group. Finally, the party was formed, and there was no longer any place for Yuzuriha and Suzuha on either side of Suzuha's brother. They traversed through the dark forest. Rather than just being dim, it also seemed pretty unsettling. Suzuha stretched her arms, finding the inside of the sea of trees cool. Yuzuriha agreed. It was the perfect weather for walking. Suzuha's brother scratched the back of his head, and Suzuha wondered if it was already time for lunch, but that wasn't it. As they go deeper, there was this unpleasant feeling that's been clinging to his skin getting thicker. And more importantly, they haven't seen a single ogre since they entered. Yuzuriha assured him that there was no need to fret as she got his back, and the twins also told him they had him by his side, so there was no need to fear mere ogres. Still, Shion was surprised that someone as strong as him has never defeated an ogre before. He'd like to say that he's just an ordinary commoner, but it'd be more trouble than it's worth, so he decided to just shut up. Then, he asked if Yuzuriha had fought ogres many times before. Of course she did. Normal ogres were nothing special, but he mustn't let his guard down since ogres also have rare mutants. For instance, the ogre general and the ogre assassin. He asked if they were strong, and Yuzuriha responded that it was only natural that they were. They're said to be far stronger compared to the run-of-the-mill, especially the ogre general and the ogre king. Being able to command other ogres like an army is what makes them particularly troublesome. That being said, she's never actually encountered a rare mutant before, and asked the Amazons if they have. Kanan answered that they encountered a rare mutant just once, and it was a very fierce fight. Shion agreed. The one they faced was an ogre shaman. Even though it was an ogre, it could use hallucination magic and tried to split them up. Suzuha's brother suddenly told them to stop. He was in an internal turmoil, questioning how he could not have noticed it until now. He was caught up in the belief that ogres couldn't use magic at all. Yuzuriha asked him what was wrong, and if it was about the ogre shaman because that one was even rarer than the others. However, the odds of them meeting one wasn't 0. That's what he's been feeling since earlier. The unease he felt all made sense now. He unsheathed his light sword and stabbed the air, causing a barrier to shatter. Before them appeared countless ogres, with the ogre king sitting above a small hill, holding a club. Yuzuriha dodged an ogre's attack, and in just a split moment, they were surrounded. There's too many of them, so Yuzuriha asked him what to do. Ogres are even more troublesome than the rumors say, so he told everyone to stand back to back and hold their ground. That big guy was clearly the Ogre King, and wondered if he was the one controlling all of them. The battle against the ogres continued, with Suzuha telling him that there was no end to them no matter how many they defeated. But Suzuha's brother believed that there must be a way to break through them. Yuzuriha heavily panted, glancing around. She couldn't believe that they were hiding so many of their ranks when she was just thinking that they would be having a fun picnic before. Normal variants would be fine, but mutants were harder to deal with, especially with their fighting force. Suzuha's brother reminded her that her breath was getting unsteady, so she apologized. But despite the extremely awful state they were in, it feels so good fighting back to back with her partner. She apologized that it came down to this, and Suzuha's brother wondered what she was talking about. Yuzuriha believed that it was possible that they'd all die here in the forest. However, she'll make it up to him by becoming his personal maid once they get to heaven, and promised to serve him forever. The twins overheard and thought it was unfair, so they promised to serve him as well, making him exclaim in confusion. Was this really the time to be talking about that? Suzuha blocked another attack from an ogre, complaining that it was just one after the other. It's annoying. Just then, she heard a munching sound and turned to look at where it's coming from. It was an ogre eating Suzuha's lunchbox that was handmade by her brother. After the ogre threw it away, she immediately dashed forward and stabbed its head, sobbing. Yuzuriha watched her go buck wild when Suzuha's brother called her, informing her of his plan. When he gives the signal, they will switch positions, and he asked her to buy him 2 minutes. No, just 1 minute. She asked what he was planning to do. He's going to take the Ogre King's head. The Ogre King, who's been leading these forces, is getting impatient. It strayed from its safe zone, getting closer to them. Yuzuriha questioned if he thought that the Ogre King was among them. He believed it was likely. After all, it can't hide the magic power it emits when giving orders. If they draw this battle out, there's no chance of them winning. But if they can just kill it, the chain of command should collapse instantly. So, can she do it? Yuzuriha smirked and swung her sword. Of course she can. Even if she dies, she'll make sure to grant those 2 minutes. He tried to tell her that just 1 minute was fine, but he initially asked her for 2 minutes. In other words, he asked for that specific amount because he had faith that she could do it. If that's the case, she must live up to his expectations at all costs. That's simply how being partners works. He counted 3 seconds before signaling Yuzuriha, who switched positions with him, determined to give him the 2 minutes he asked for. Fast forward, the Ogre King died, and the 5 stared at it with exhausted expressions and panting heavily. They couldn't believe that they would charge at them all at once as soon as they lost their commander. The Ogre King probably gave such an order just before it died. Cheyenne didn't think they'd have to fight for 3 entire days and nights, and poor Cannon can't even move anymore. Suzuha collapsed to the ground, so Yuzuriha worriedly asked what was wrong and whether she was injured. A tear escaped her eye as she complained about the ogres eating the lunchbox her brother made her, and he just comforted her by saying he'll make another one. It was already late at night when Suzuha's brother got back to the base after making his round in the sea of trees again, but he couldn't spot a single ogre. So they must have been devastated after the battle. After all, they fought so many of them, and with that, they shouldn't be able to do anything for a while. There's been a report from the army as well. It's regretful, but they had to leave tomorrow. At that moment, Cheyenne and Kanan entered their tent. He approached them, asking to make sure if they could move already. There was no problem since Amazons were tough. More importantly, it seems he's leaving already. There's no longer a threat of ogres after all. Kanan slid the tent's flap open before telling them that the Amazons have prepared a feast to celebrate the defeat of the Ogre King, and that they'd like it if they joined them before parting ways. They feasted on various meals, with the twins pouring Suzuha's brother a drink, and Yuzuriha watching in jealousy. He just laughed, while the two ate aggressively as they watched him interact with the twins. The next day, the twins saw them off, showing their gratitude. The Ogre King was an extremely dangerous existence, and if not for him, they would have been in danger. He tried to deny it, but Cheyenne cut him off and touched his cheek. He may face some troubles ahead in his country, so if it's for his sake, the Amazons swear to rush to his aid, no matter where they may be. They sealed that promise with a kiss on either side of his cheeks. In the Sakuragi residence, Arthur was sitting on his desk, reading a report, when Tuko suddenly came in and had some not-so-good news. When he noticed Arthur's expression, she realized that it must be the same for him as well. Arthur wondered if that not-so-good news of hers will be able to outdo his. Tuko asked what he was talking about, and he explained that these past few days, movement has been observed within their kingdom. A war of aggression has begun. Tuko was visibly concerned, wondering how it could spiral into something so serious. This just shows the extent of the influence of their actions this time. There was the unexpected appearance of an organized army in the Great Sea of Trees, yet it took no more than 5 elites to completely exterminate them. Her older brothers, the princes, intend to take the credit for this great achievement. They'd spout BS like the military had known of the monster army's existence since the beginning, and as such, Yuzuriha and her group were dispatched. That appears to be the scenario they've decided on. Tuko could not believe it. The military was completely unaware of the monster army, and if Suzuha's brother had not discovered it, it would have become a huge issue by now. That's right. However, their neighboring country has already released the details about the situation. Tuko beamed at the mention of the Amazons, as they seemed to like Suzuha's brother. Well, it would have been fine if the princes had just accepted it and acknowledged his abilities. However, acknowledging his abilities would mean acknowledging his backers, the Sakuragi family. When that happens, they will think that their ducal household's influence would be too overwhelming. They cannot use that prepared scenario, but they cannot acknowledge him either. So, he asked Tuko what she thought they could do to keep this matter under wraps while still taking the credit. The answer is to mislead the public into believing it is only a part of an even greater contribution. That is why they are using a war of aggression. Yuzuriha and the others were told shortly after they returned to the capital that the royal family and military had declared a war of aggression against a neighboring country. Suzuha's brother went back to his normal daily life of doing housework and is now buying a bunch of vegetables in the market. He had an iffy expression as he walked away with his bag of groceries. Vegetables have become more expensive recently, and he ended up going over the budget for this month. As the threat of war looms closer, the prices in the capital rise. Since he had that to worry about, he wanted to save some money, but he can't exactly let his little sister starve when she has such a growing, hearty appetite. Once he got home, he saw Suzuha eating at the dining table. She sighed and told him that everyone at the academy was focused on the war. She and Yuzuriha aren't practicing, but most of the students that joined the expedition are planning to. Yuzuriha, who was with her eating, stabbed her fish in frustration. She was waiting for him to finally join the ranks of the nobility after his efforts in the great sea of trees would be acknowledged. But once they got home, everyone was just war this and war that. On top of that, even his acknowledgement was postponed to a later date. He quickly denied all of it, questioning why he would become a noble after defeating some ogres. She sure was exaggerating things. Yuzuriha scoffed, pointing at him. She was used to that reaction already. As oblivious as he may be, what he's achieved this time is just that great of a feat. Just then, Suzuha stood up to go to the restroom, while Yuzuriha insisted that he was amazing. Once Suzuha was further, her brother leaned closer to Yuzuriha, whispering that there was something he wanted to talk about with just the two of them. Blood dripped down her nose as she asked what it was. She was so excited that a secret discussion between just the two of them was happening, so she told him to go ahead and ask her anything. The truth is, Suzuha's birthday is coming up soon. She's never been the type to care about anything other than getting stronger, so he's always given her wooden swords and dumbbells as presents. Yuzuriha wondered if those really were gifts a big brother should be giving his little sister. He scratched the back of his neck. Suzuha is at that age as well, so this year, he wanted to get her a stylish present a girl her age would like. That's why he wanted to consult with her. Yuzuriha gets it now and suggests they go shopping together. Oh, I see what you did there, Yuzuriha. He agreed and they went shopping for Suzuha's gift. He apologized that she had to tag along with him, but she assured him that it was fine since she wanted to buy a present for her as well. Her face flushed red at the thought that it was just the two of them. She just said it as a joke, but she didn't expect it would actually happen. Suzuha's brother wondered what would be a good present for Suzuha, and Yuzuriha thought something that won't get in the way on the battlefield would be good. So she suggested an accessory since an accessory was pretty much the go-to present for a girl. She pointed to a street where there are a bunch of stores ahead and suggested looking through them closely. Yuzuriha walked first and he followed behind her. She urged to look at the stores lined before them, and when he looked over, he realized it was a district lined exclusively with high-end stores, even by the capital standards, the Nobles District. What will become of the loving older brother's wallet? I bet it'd get emptied in a flash. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you love this manga. Have a good day.